Welcome to Beyond the Medical Algorithm, a podcast by the Philly Wellness Center. Join us on a journey through the too often neglected path to wellness, where we celebrate the human body and all things natural to illuminate new roads to health and happiness. Holistic is the name of the game, and I'll be talking to fellow experts and enthusiasts to rejoice in healing and revolutionize the way we approach therapy. I'm your host, Catie Harris. So on today's episode of Beyond the Medical Algorithm, we're joined by Marielle Rubin, founder of The Balance Room, a Pilates and Trek studio renowned for its commitment to community and mindfulness in Philadelphia. Marielle transitioned into the wellness space fueled by her passion for movement and empowerment through exercise, leading her to become a certified Pilates instructor and Trek's trainer. With a deep expertise in integrating mindfulness with physical fitness, Marielle has crafted a unique space that fosters holistic approach to wellness, enhancing the bond between body and mind. Welcome, Marielle.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's just great. So, Marielle, I understand you've always had a passion for movement, and it's played a significant role in your life from a young age. Could you share a little bit about how your personal experience with exercise, particularly during your teenage years, led you to discover Pilates?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say I've always had a passion for movement. As a kid, I wasn't particularly athletic. My older sister really was athletic, and I played sports and never the star on the team at all. She was, but I was not. And when I entered high school, really like my junior and senior year, I started exercising just for fun. My friends and I actually went to boarding school my junior and senior year. My friends and I would like go to the gym, and it was a social thing for us. We would like get on the elliptical and do some crunches, and who knows what that was really doing for our physicality, but it really just like kind of helped keep us sane, and it was fun. And it kind of made me recognize the power of physical activity. I was more focused in school, I think, because I started to exercise for fun, and the camaraderie that it built, I think, also helped enhance my high school experience. And then fast forward, and that like passion for exercise kind of continued into college and beyond. And I'm kind of going on a little tangent here, just leading into Pilates, but I didn't always treat my body with the most respect, right? Like I would run a bunch of miles and then feel kind of terrible after. I think that was kind of where exercise was kind of bringing me, because that's what culture dictated. And then when I found Pilates, it was really like another like pivotal point for me, where I could like see and feel my body feeling great again. And that's where my passion for Pilates really took off.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to get to that, but I want to go back to where did you end up going to boarding school?
I went to a school called Brewster Academy. It's in New Hampshire. I'm from New England.
Okay. Did you like it?
I did. I was a little bit of a devious kid, and even though, I seem like such an angel now, but I didn't really want to go, end up being the best thing for me. And I did actually enjoy it.
Awesome. I'm so envious, because that's all I wanted when I was in high school. I wanted to go to boarding school in Switzerland, and my parents would not send me.
Oh my God. I don't know if my parents would have sent me to Switzerland, but they sent me to New Hampshire from Massachusetts. They're happy to do that for sure.
So where did you go to college, and what did you major in?
I went to American University. I actually double majored in history and literature, which like has nothing to do with anything. I mean, the skills I learned, I still love to write. Some of those translate. I really loved what I learned, but nothing has to do with what I do now.
So did you do Pilates in college, or where did that start?
So it started after college. I actually moved to Israel right after college. I never had the opportunity to go abroad, and I really wanted to. And I had the opportunity to go to Israel through like a long-term program that helped young Jewish adults go there. But I ended up staying a little bit longer. But when I was there, I lived on a kibbutz, and there was a Pilates class there. And I still loved to exercise. There just like there weren't a lot of opportunities to. So I started doing Pilates. I joined that class, and they started teaching it in English for me. And some of the participants did not like that. So the instructor was very nice. And she switched back to Hebrew. And it was a really interesting experience, because I could still keep up. Movement is universal, even if I didn't really understand everything she was saying. And that really kickstarted my passion for Pilates.
Okay. And had you ever done Pilates prior to this?
Maybe here and there, but not seriously.
Okay. And what made you become serious about it?
I really loved the way it made my body feel. Like for the first time in a long time, I felt kind of injury free. I do not run anymore, but I was running a lot and my hips were always hurting and tight. My hamstrings were always tight. There was always just something off. And, Pilates didn't cure everything, but it made me feel so much better. And that's when kind of a light bulb went off. And I was like, oh, this is really good for me. And if it's really good for me, it's going to be really good for a lot of other people.
Okay. So you went to college, then you went to Israel, you found Pilates. Did you come back and start working as a Pilates instructor, or how did that happen?
Not right away. So I came back and I actually wanted to go back to Israel. I really came back because I was 24 maybe and I ran out of money. And I was like, all right, I have to figure something out. I had at that point a little bit of savings that I had used. And I was like, you know what? If I go home and get a job in the next 2 weeks, I'll stay. And if I don't, I will buy a ticket and go back to Israel. And I ended up getting a fantastic job at EF Educational Tours, which still allowed me to travel. That was important to me because I still wanted to travel. I was in sales and marketing there. And I kind of focused on that for a while. I really just kind of like needed to make ends meet at that point. I really wanted to hang out with my friends. I didn't have a lot of time for anything else. Fast forward maybe a year, I was like, I really miss Pilates. Started doing it again, found a studio, and one of my instructors there convinced me to get certified. And that was probably 11 or 12 years ago. And that really started my journey into teaching.
Now, just to go back a little bit, I mean, you got a job within 2 weeks of coming home from Israel, and it was like a great job.
I say it was a great job. It was great for the time. It paid nothing. It was great for what I needed and wanted. I was still able to travel. I was working with a lot of other young people, which was fun. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the things that happened in that job. But it was a fun work environment. It was really what I needed at the time. And yeah, I applied. So I was living in Boston, and EF is a big employer of young people there in Cambridge, but in the Boston area. So I ended up just applying on a whim and got an interview and just got it. So it was kind of happenstance and luck, but also it just kind of really fit what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounded like the forces were going to.
Yeah. The first week, you're not going back there. You're staying in Boston.
Yeah. So, how did you end up in Philadelphia?
I ended up in Philadelphia because of my now husband. We started dating. About a year in, he was like, I'm probably not going to move to Boston. We were long distance. My family's here. He grew up in the city. And my family's here. My business is here. And I'm like, I've been in Boston for 10 years. I'll try it. And that was 8 years ago.
And when you came to Philadelphia, what was the scene like for Pilates at that time?
It was very different. I was already mat certified when I came here. And there weren't a ton of studios. There wasn't a ton of opportunity. And I was still teaching as kind of a side gig. I was only mat certified. And then I won't go into this entire story, but I was really unhappy with my job. I was commuting back and forth from New York. And I sat down with my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and we were living together. And I was like, I'm really unhappy. I would love to teach full time. And he's like, why don't you just try it? Like, just try it. If it doesn't last forever, you'll get another job somewhere. And I loved it. I made a lot of sacrifices, but I loved it. And I decided to get certified on all the equipment. I went through the Drexel University Pilates program to do that and really took off from there. And that was about 8 years ago.
So, did you decide to start your business right away, or did you get certified thinking you were going to get hired somewhere?
So I actually had already gotten hired somewhere. And I think in the back of my mind, I knew I always wanted to start my own space, but I only opened the balance room in March of 2021.
Has it only been around that long? That's all it's been here?
And I just taught a lot. It was a grind, Catie. It was really a lot of work, but a lot of really great experience and really informed the way I run the business, the values that are embedded in my business. So while it was a hard few years or number of years leading up to it, I wouldn't trade it.
So, you are pretty big into mindfulness as well, right? Is that a big part of Pilates, or is that something that you've added as kind of like just something that is important to you?
Mindfulness is a huge part of Pilates. It's a big part of my life, but you can't separate mindfulness from Pilates. It's not a modality where you can go in and really kind of check out and just go through the motions. In order to get the most out of it, you really have to be super present and really at least try to feel embodied, to tap into how your body feels. Actually had this conversation with someone today after one of my classes. She felt really checked out during class, which like it's normal. We're human. You can't always just walk into class and be like, oh, I'm right here. She was like, I really felt like, oh, it was a great class, but I really felt like I didn't get that much out of it because I couldn't concentrate. And I was like, exactly. That is what Pilates is. It really requires you to mentally be there.
So, is community a big part of your business model and how you've set the balance room up?
Totally. I mean, it's all about the community. There are so many examples it's in Queen Village. It's very much a neighborhood studio. And I would say 90% of the folks who come within like a 10-minute walk, I can't even count the number of times that, people have gotten on the reformers next to each other and like figured out they were neighbors or like live right down the street from each other. It really is so awesome. And there are certain classes where like the same people come. It's only reformer classes are only 5 participants, and there are regulars coming every Wednesday at 5 p.m. They really get to know each other. And it really makes for such a cool vibe within the studio.
Yeah, it does. And it's hard to, I feel like that the Pilates space has really changed in the city as well, because it's like some of these bigger gyms, you can't even get into a Pilates reformer class. It's so annoying because they'll fill up like immediately, which is crazy. And so has there been a big transition, especially after, I would say, COVID, to have people come into your space just because it's gotten so popular?
Definitely. And I also feel like when I opened, there weren't a lot of reformer group class options. Now there are a lot more, or there are a few more. I wouldn't say a lot more, but one of the only reformer studios, Free House, had closed during the pandemic, and people were really looking for that type of movement. And again, there are more Pilates studios that have opened up, and I truly don't see it as competition. I really like have an abundance mindset, and I believe that there are more than enough people who want to do Pilates for us all. And what's the saying? A rising tide lifts all boats. So I think the emergence of all these Pilates studios have helped my business for sure in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, there's definitely not enough reformers in the city by any stretch of the imagination.
It's not an inexpensive business to start. You have to put a lot of money in up front. I was very lucky that I had a partner who could help with finances around the house. I think it would be a false narrative to say, like, I just bootstrapped and did it all on my own. I did a lot of it on my own, it was my money, but it definitely took the support of a partner also. So I think that's a big barrier to starting a studio like this.
Absolutely. But I mean, this was right on the heels of COVID. So that was kind of bold. Did that make it even harder?
It's so funny. I love answering this question because it did not. I actually opened at a time where, first of all, when I opened, I was doing mostly private sessions. I was teaching maybe 1 or 2 Zoom classes a week, and really opened in this sweet spot where people were like, I want to get the heck out of my house. I cannot exercise next to my computer, like next to my desk anymore. I need to get out of here. And they felt safe enough being with one other person. We were masked first many months of the business being opened. And I was so busy right off the bat. Honestly, a little too busy. I was so burnt out. And then it just transitioned to people felt safer coming in for a group class. And then I hired some people, and it just kind of organically grew.
So, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced establishing the balance room?
Definitely like letting go of control and trusting other folks to help me run my space. It was very hard for me. I really had this idea that I would just like teach my clients and teach classes kind of when I wanted to. And it was so naive. It was never going to be that. I have this ground level corner space in the middle of a busy neighborhood. It was just never going to be that. So when I became pregnant with my son, it was clear that I had to hire. And that was a huge step for me. And also finding the right people. I would say anybody who owns a small business, especially in fitness, will say most challenging part is finding like the right people to help you. Definitely.
Yes. How did you get that spot? So you're on 5th and Fitzwater, right?
Our group studio is on 5th and Fitzwater, and that's our original studio. And then we have our private studio down the street at 6th and Queen.
Yes, I've seen that one. So that's a private studio. That's like right in my little neighborhood.
Yeah, that's the private studio.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the pictures. It looks really nice. So, all right. So the group classes are in Fifth and Fitzwater. Was it difficult getting that location? I mean, that's a pretty popular area.
It wasn't because I have a friend named Jacob Hooper, and he's in commercial real estate. He works for MSC. You see those signs like all over the city. And he knew I kind of had my eye out. I wasn't really seriously looking. And he texted me one day. He was like, I have a spot. And basically, in a nice way, was like, if you can't make it here, then you're not meant to have a Pilates studio. Like, this is it. This is the place. And yeah, no pressure. I was like, thanks. But he was right. It was really the former hair salon, had mirrors, floor to ceiling mirrors, such a great location. And I mean, because it was COVID, I got such a good deal on rent, and it was just meant to be.
That's awesome. So, in terms of how Pilates and mindfulness, you bring this together, do you have like an example or a memorable story of a client where this has actually really helped transform their life? Or, maybe it doesn't need to be that dramatic.
Certainly, I feel like there are so many examples of that. I actually, because top of mind, I saw her today. I have a client who is super athletic, a runner, biker, she looks like just physically so fit. And caveat, looking physically fit can mean very different things, but she's like the stereotype of that. And when she first came to me, I've been working with her for almost 7 years now. When she first came to me, she really was so disconnected from her body. Like her arm might as well have been like the table over there. It really just didn't connect for her. And it took a while, but over the years, she was able, and she also like really wanted to feel the burn, which is a common thing. When you come to work out, you're like, I want to feel this next day. I want to feel sore. I want to feel fiery.
No, I don't have that problem.
Honestly, you and me both. But a lot of people do come in expecting that. And I totally will come to Pilates for many different reasons. But when she was able to slow down and really tap into how the movements were making her body feel, tap into her breath and how her breath affected the way that she moved, it really was a game changer for her. First of all, she stopped getting injured. One of her goals was to, run a little bit faster. She was running faster and she was just happier. Again, I've known her for almost 7 years now, and I've seen a huge change in her disposition. It's been really amazing.
So, why do you think people become disconnected from their body?
For so many different reasons. For some, it's a trauma response to disconnect, and that's their coping mechanism. For some, they were never taught to connect with their body, so they never learned how to. I never, as a child, was taught to connect my body, and now I see there's like kids yoga classes everywhere and movement for young kids, which I think is so fantastic. And I think it's just not a priority for a lot of people. We're busy. People are busy, and it kind of is like the last on the list for some people.
Yeah. Do you think it's hard for people to really kind of connect with their body and integrate mindfulness into daily life?
Yes, I do think it's hard for most people, but you have to start somewhere. I've heard from so many people like, oh, I would love to take an hour out of my week to come to you, or I'd love to like take this and do it at home. But there are so many barriers. Like you have a job and you have kids and you're tired, and maybe a wife or a husband, a daughter, a son. There's so many different roles you play. And I think like mindfulness and physicality that might go along with mindfulness really comes last until it's not too late, but until it kind of has to come first or higher on the list.
Right. It has to be reprioritized. How often do people normally do Pilates? Like, what's a good practice?
I would say at least twice a week. If people are taking a private session, most people come once a week and then maybe do a class or two. I have some clients who come twice a week. I have one client that comes 3 times a week. But if you're doing classes 2 to 3 times a week, I would say it really depends on your body and what your goals are. If it's just to like support other types of movement, once a week is fine. If you have another goal that's more related to strengthening through Pilates or building flexibility, it's probably best you come more than once a week.
Right. So now, do you see anything unique in the Philadelphia market in terms of Pilates that's different from other places, especially since you come from other places that, or something quirky?
Absolutely. The quality of instruction in Philadelphia is top notch. It truly is. And I have taken Pilates everywhere. I mean, top of mind is New York. And I've had some wonderful instructors in New York, but I've had some terrible instructors in New York. I really think Philadelphia has so many good, thoughtful teachers that aren't just about like, oh, I'm this thin woman teaching Pilates and I want you to feel the burn and like that's it. Like the teachers in Philadelphia really care and it shows in their instruction.
Now, do you collaborate a lot with other local businesses or other community organizations?
I would love to more. I have certainly in the past, but it's a goal of mine. I'm having a baby in October, so I'm not sure like how deep I'm going to get, but it's a goal of mine for this year, especially in the second half of this year, to connect with more local businesses in Queen Village. I've connected with some, but a goal, I would say.
Okay. So, I mean, kind of looking back on what you've done in the last couple of years, and it sounds like having kids on top of this as well, which is, it's a lot going on in your life. But what are you most proud of with the Balance Room at this point?
Really the community that I've built through the Balance Room and not just the folks who come and take Pilates, but the instructors. I have such a lovely crew of instructors that also contribute to bringing in really lovely folks to come practice in the studio. Everyone's so supportive. I've so rarely come across a client or someone coming to the studio that I've been like, maybe you're not a great fit. Like, really doesn't happen. And I'm really, really proud that I was able to do that. And I'm also, it sounds cliche, but I'm also so proud of being a mom and being able to do that. You know, it's hard. It's really hard to juggle it all. And I'm so glad that I was able to.
Now, your child's pretty young, but when would you start them with Pilates?
Oh my God. Actually, I have photos and videos of him on the reformer. He's not doing much, but he's kind of just laying there. Not for a little while. I mean, a few more years. He's only 2. He like has to have a little more body awareness. There's no way he could take any sort of direction at this point.
I know my kids at that age, they're already using their like full body muscles and learning coordination. And then it's like we lose it at some point.
100%. But there's very little mindfulness that goes into his movements right now. He is like a bulldozer.
That's too funny. So, do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about?
Actually, we just finished a very light renovation of our basement space in the private studio. Painted it, put down some new flooring. There's still a few more little tweaks I want to make, but that's actually going to be our new mat studio. And we're going to put more of an emphasis on mat Pilates, more classes. There's a lot more space down there. I really think the mat work gets lost in all of the kind of hubbub that surrounds reformer and the equipment. And mat work is really powerful and really hard and just amazing. And it has kind of gone by the wayside at my studio, and I don't want that to happen. So we're really focusing on the mat program. Come the fall, at the latest, we'll have that all rolled out. And that's all part of my goal to connect with more community members in the neighborhood because I want to host workshops down there. There's a lot of space and really kind of get folks more involved because there's so much people can do with like a reformer studio if you're not using the reformers, but a big, open, beautiful space kind of draws more variety and more types of people in to collaborate.
Yeah. Do you see yourself expanding outside of like Queen Village, maybe taking over the city or something?
Taking over the world, I don't know. Honestly, no. And that could change. Again, my goal when I opened was just to like teach my clients and maybe teach a couple classes. I really never even thought it would get to this point. So right now, we're just going to stay put.
I love it. All right, Mari. Well, where can people find more and find your studios and join your classes?
So our website is balancephl.com. Really anything you need to know is on that site. Our schedule is there. It'll link you to our Mind Body site. We use the booking software Mind Body, so you can find us also on there if you search. And yeah, there's always someone at one of our locations if you want to stop by and say hi. I would say caution against calling. Answering the phone is hard for me during the day. So our emails, my admin's email, my emails on the website. Send us a note and we'll get back to you.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thanks, Catie. I'm so glad I was able to be here.
Beyond the Medical Algorithm is brought to you by the Philly Wellness Center. To find out more about the Philly Wellness Center and how we're challenging conventional medical wisdom and shedding light on more natural means of healing and therapy, visit phillywellnesscenter.com. And then make sure to search for Holistic Health in Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at the Philly Wellness Center, keep celebrating the innate power in our incredible bodies, and thanks for listening.